Okay, so it's the end of the year, and as is with the custom, with pretty much anyone who reviews pretty much anything on YouTube of any kind, the year would not be complete unless there was a my favorite picks of the year video. So in my case, today's video is going to be all about my favorite DC Comics action figures for the year of 2020. And then we can just take this year and kick it in the behind. Get it out of there. Now I do have a list right here written out in rudimentary red marker. It's really messy, and it's actually not the first list. It was difficult to even compile this list. I don't know how I'm going to even order it because the figures on here I like so much that it's so difficult to list them. But hold on, let's number them right now. That's one. Okay. This wasn't easy, and I bet you next week I feel differently about this list. But as of right now, sitting in this chair, this is my ultimate list, my top 12 my top 12 figures for 2020. Okay, let's get into it. I need that. All right, so starting at the very bottom of the list, we're going to climb up all the way to the tippy top tower. We have the DC Essentials Hal Jordan Green Lantern figure, and I put him on the list because it's really difficult to find yourself a well-articulated, comic book accurate Hal Jordan figure. Now, I know the DC Essentials action figures are flimsy, and the knee joints and the elbow joints get kind of wiggly, and don't even get me started on their ankles. It's so difficult to get them to stand up. Quite often I'm sitting here in this chair recording a video, and then randomly back there DC Essentials will just fall over. Why? No idea, no reason. That is number 12. Number 11 is the Nightfall Batman from DC Essentials. So on the very bitty bottom of the list, we have two DC Essentials figures. That Nightfall Batman figure I feel is an excellent, dare I say, almost perfect representation of the blue and gray Batman with the capsules and the oval on the chest. I feel like, you know, for one of the last figures to be released under that DC Essentials wave that's not one of their zombified DC characters from Deceased, I feel like it was a great, was it the second last attempt at Batman? Aside from the zombified ones, because they also did a black and gray version of the... why do any of you watch any of my videos? And then coming in at number 10, we have the Supreme Knight from Mezco. I wasn't quite sure where I wanted to put him on the list, but I do know after reviewing the figure, although he's not my favorite look for a Batman, I just feel like it came together so well, and the figure was well articulated enough. And when I do reach up occasionally to take down a Mezco 1/12 collective figure that I want to fiddle with, I'm going to be honest, it's usually that one. So I feel like they did a good enough job on that figure. The suit looked interesting, and I like their take on essentially what would be a Dark Knight Returns era Batman in their Batman figure trinity of figures. And it also came with two capes, a wired cape and a non-wired cape. And I don't think that they'd ever done that before. I'm pretty sure it was always just the one cape, so kudos to them for that as well. What about figure number 9, you ask? Well, that is the Mayfax Hush Batman figure. I wanted to place him higher up on the list, but when compared with the rest of the figures, as much as I really do like that figure, he made the list. I feel like there were other figures that were better than that one. And honestly, I'm more excited about the black and gray variant. As much as I love that blue and gray, I feel like the black and gray is going to be the one that I really embrace even more. The figure has good articulation, good flow, came with a wired cape, but the problems with it were the cape was really bulky around the neck. And the first one that I got, it wasn't even properly glued in, so that was a thing. And I just feel like for as great as that figure is, I feel like the black and gray one is going to be even better. So he sits comfortably in spot number 9. Okay, so I'm going to be totally honest, moving forward, a lot of this list is dominated going forward. Not completely, but there certainly are more than just a few entries from McFarlane Toys' DC Multiverse, because coming in at number 8, we have the Arkham City Batman figure. A figure that, for me, actually made me take a second look at that suit. I'm not a fan of that suit. I never used it in the game. I actually used the 89 Batman suit as soon as I possibly could. I used that skin. But Todd did a really great job translating that suit into something that looked bulky and big and badass. I feel like he did a fantastic job on it, and that's why it's made it to number 8 on my list. Now, what is number 7, you ask? Well, you probably didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyway. It is the Mezco 1/12 Collective Tank Girl, Harley Quinn. She was fantastically crafted. Every detail of the figure really draws my eye in. And sure, they're Mezco and Toys Collective, so their articulation at times is definitely lacking, but they definitely make up for it with their own Mezco 1/12 Collective spin on the character, and the accessory count and the overall sculpt and look. Out of all of my Mezco 1/12 collectives, she is one of the figures as well, much like the Supreme Knight, that I feel like I want to keep going back to and grabbing and fiddling with. She's just so interesting to look at that I had to place her at number 7 on this list. For number 6, we have another McFarlane Toys entry. It's the DC Multiverse Flash action figure. The single-carded one is the one that I actually like better. I think that to have a highly articulated Flash figure in his rebirth suit was sent from the DC gods from above. Those of us who are Flash fans, those of us who have been waiting for a super articulated Flash figure, finally had our DC prayers met with this guy. And I think that in every way, shape, and form, he met my expectations of what McFarlane could do. He even went as far as to put the painted and sculpted details right there in his Flash cowl. And the little cheeky grin on the side, it's just such a fantastic figure that if you own it, then you probably understand why he ended up being so high on this list. For number 5, we have another McFarlane Toys entry, and that is the Red Hood. Dude, I can't say enough good things about this figure. It is a fantastic representation of the character. The sculpted detail is through the roof, and he delivered to me, a fan, the Red Hood figure that I've always wanted. We saw a DC Multiverse from Mattel Red Hood figure that a lot of people didn't like. I really did like the figure, but I did, as you all know, think that it was incredibly ridiculous that the guns were molded into the side. Even Jason Langston, a friend of mine, a friend of the channel, even he laments the idea that they ended up there because that is not what any of them planned when they were creating this figure. It just kind of ended up happening, and he was just as surprised as the rest of us. And then we have the DC Essentials Red Hood, a fantastic rendition of Red Hood. Absolutely not to knock that version of Red Hood, but when you compare all of the Red Hood figures side by side, in my opinion, there is absolutely no question that this Red Hood figure is head and shoulders above the rest as far as its visual appeal, its posability, and overall value to us as Red Hood fans and collectors. We're getting right down to the brass tacks here. 4 more figures to go, and who could they be? You'll have to stick around to find out. We have the Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman figure from the DC Multiverse action figure line from McFarlane Toys. Yes, yet again, another McFarlane Toys, but he killed it with this figure. He nailed it dead on. From the facial features to all of the details, he did add some signature McFarlane added detail to the figure, but I feel like it doesn't take away one bit. It actually ends up making the figure look, in my opinion, even cooler. This figure was big, he was bulky, he was badass, he was no nonsense, and I really don't know if anybody, anytime, any place ever will make a better 7-inch scale Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman figure. If you don't have it, seriously, track this bad boy down. It's well worth the $19.99 American. Next on the list, we have the Storm Collectibles Injustice Gods Among Us Lobo action figure. That bad boy deserves a large piece of the pie and all the accolades for being such a fantastic figure. That is one that I knew I was going to like when I purchased, and then once I got it in hand and opened up the box, I mean, well, you saw my review. I loved it. It is such a fantastic attempt. There is no other main man, as far as I'm concerned, in the action figure universe. Yes, and that means even though I really do like the Collect and Connect figure in the DC Multiverse line from Mattel, that is a fantastic figure. It looks great on the shelf with the rest of my Mattel figures. It does not compare. This figure stands head and shoulders above every other iteration in action figure form of the main man, Lobo. And now we're down to 2 more figures. I will put a few honorable mentions at the end of this video as well that did not quite make the list because I felt like 12 was a good enough number. Really, if I could number them all right down, but I figure 12 was 2 more than 10, and everyone does a top 10, but I did a top 12, so I'm already screwing myself with the algorithm because everyone searches up top 10, and top 10 is the number that the algorithm grabs and throws forward, but I had to stop somewhere, and 12 was it. So there will be a few honorable mentions as well at the end of this video. But for figure number 2, those of you who know me probably already know what this is going to be, and you're wondering why I haven't said it yet, and that is the McFarlane Toys Action Comics 1000 Superman figure. Now I know, there are a lot of you right now at home going, oh man, that figure stank, and you're entitled to your opinion. I respect your opinion, but for me, I loved it so much. Yes, of course, I swapped heads and did a cape on the other one because that's what I do. But even just vanilla, I think this is probably one of the best Superman figures ever made. I don't want to give it that title quite yet because my heart still belongs to the Superpowers Collection Superman, and we still have the Mayfax Hush Superman to come out. So yes, there will be a greatest Superman figure ever made video, my top 10, once that is released. But at this point, I gotta say, if there's any Superman figure at all that I reach for to fiddle with the most when I'm editing videos and stuff, it is the McFarlane Toys Superman figure. I just like it. So sue me. And the action figure taking the #1 spot for my DC Comics action figure of the year is the Mayfax Dark Knight Returns Batman figure. That is my absolute favorite figure. I really feel like that is the best of both worlds for a lot of us. You have a solid goods Batman figure, because a lot of people don't like cloth goods. And truth be known, I have been on the record as saying I prefer a solid goods figure with a cloth goods cape. And that is exactly what we get with the Mayfax Dark Knight Returns figure. It is big and bulky and every bit comic accurate, and really gives me them Dark Knight Returns feels. And coming with the 2 extra heads, a gritty tooth head, and then the regular just kind of grumpy frowny head, I feel like Mayfax knocked it so far out of the park that it went all the way around the world and knocked him in the back of the head, and it left the ball in their hand again to knock more balls out of the park. I like it that much. Now, I know that that's probably not what you were thinking. I was going to say it was my figure of the year, but alas, it is. That's the one that I thought was the best. And now it's time for the honorable mentions. #1, we have the Mezco 1/12 Collective Aquaman. I feel like that they did such a fantastic job recreating in their own signature style everyone's favorite underwater king, Arthur Curry, the Aquaman, that I had to place him not on this list, but certainly mention him in this video as one of Mezco 1/12 Collective's finest in their DC line of figures, in my humble opinion. And then #2, probably one of the best attempts at a classic-ish looking Aquaman figure to date, in my opinion. Next, I could very easily mention the DC Essentials Catwoman figure and Sinestro. More specifically, Catwoman. I feel like to get that balanced Catwoman with that much articulation, and let's face it, the female body for those DC Essentials, actually, I feel it was better. The ankles were more stable on those figures than with the males. It was easier to pose them around. I love the figure form of that Catwoman, so I had to give her a mention. Anyway, super friends, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this. It's been a fantastic year for action figure collectors like us, DC or otherwise. I collected a bunch of stuff that wasn't DC. I can't wait to see what next year brings. We'll just have to live through it. Hopefully we survive it, and hopefully it is a better year than the one that we are very soon to be escaping with the flipping of the calendar page. But like I said, that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you with the next one. Have yourself a fantastic, super awesome DC day, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.